You already possess an invisible bank, one more powerful than any material institution, but you may have never accessed it consciously. This bank is your subconscious mind, the vault that holds the full record of your beliefs, emotions, and vibrational frequencies, all of which have silently directed the course of your destiny. In this video, you will not only uncover how this spiritual bank operates, but also learn how to activate your soul account, assign true value to your emotions, purge counterfeit spiritual currency, and engage in simple yet potent rituals every morning and night. This is not a promise of overnight wealth, but a blueprint for a life of deep inner abundance, rooted, resilient, and unwavering. The invisible bank within, yours all along without knowing. There is a truth that has walked beside you your entire life, yet perhaps you've never recognized it. You possess an inner bank that never stops operating. A silent financial system exists within your mind, recording every thought, every emotion, and every belief as if they were high-value transactions. No one gave it to you. You've owned it from the moment your consciousness first stirred. There's no need to open an account, no identification card, no access code, because you alone hold the authority to deposit and withdraw from this place. This bank resembles no financial institution you've ever known. It has no digital balance board, no customer service desk, no steel vault. Instead, it stores each transaction through the energy you emit through your thoughts, emotions, and daily choices. Every word you repeat in your mind, every image you cling to, every feeling you nurture, even for a few seconds, is inscribed into the ledger of this invisible bank. If you understand this, you will begin to live differently, because you are not merely living through external events. You are dwelling in the very reality you've deposited into this spiritual bank over time. When you find yourself in lack, struggle, or exhaustion, it is not life's betrayal, it is the honest response of your internal account. People tend to place their faith in what they can see cash in hand, signed contracts, glowing numbers on a bank screen. Yet when you walk into a physical bank, you willingly deposit money simply because you trust the unseen system behind a few typed words. So why hesitate to trust the miraculous system operating within your own subconscious, a system that never closes, that responds to your every mental and emotional deposit with a precision more intricate than any machine ever created? Since childhood, you may have heard the same phrases repeated, that we must work hard to succeed, save to acquire, fight to rise. But few ever taught you that the greatest asset you own is not out there, it lies within you, in the soil only you can tend or neglect. Few showed you how to check your spiritual balance, how to deposit gratitude, withdraw focus, or grow compound interest through unwavering faith. You are using this bank every day, whether you know it or not. And because you are unaware, you allow it to operate automatically, unconsciously. You make endless unnamed deposits, repeated complaints, unhealed memories, illusions of lack fed by fear. You deposit and deposit without pause, and then wonder why your life feels limited, stagnant, and scarce. But this bank does not err. It only reflects exactly what you've chosen to invest. True wealth is not the result of a sudden windfall or a lucky break. It is the natural outcome of steady, intentional deposits into your inner bank. When you deposit clear images of abundance, sincere feelings of gratitude, and unshakable belief in your own capacity to rise, you are investing in a fund that yields returns far greater than any global market. This does not mean you will wake up with money in hand or that all your problems will vanish overnight. But you will begin to notice new signals, an idea arising while cleaning, a door opening when you stop forcing, an invitation arriving at the perfect moment, a solution emerging from the most unexpected place. None of this is random. These are the dividends of spiritual deposits you've quietly accumulated, finally reaching the tipping point to become what you call opportunity. No one else can deposit into your internal account. No one else is responsible for that balance. And no one but you can alter the outcome. The power is yours. It has always been yours. All that is needed now is awareness. From this moment on, You have a choice. You can continue to make unconscious deposits and accept a passive balance, or you can become a true spiritual investor, someone who chooses each deposit with care, someone who understands that every emotional current has weight. Every mental image is a transfer order shaping the future. You don't need to believe in miracles. Just look at the life you already have. It is the invoice sent directly from your inner bank. And starting today, if you wish to see a different number on that statement, don't search for magic elsewhere. Begin by depositing what truly reflects the person you are becoming. The inner bank, mightier than any physical institution. If a bank in the outside world promised you that by depositing sincere belief, you would receive tenfold in return, would you do it? Have you ever paused to ask yourself what you've truly been depositing into the invisible financial system operating ceaselessly in your own mind? Your presence here in this journey is no accident. It is a signal, a quiet awakening that you're beginning to see a greater truth. The most powerful financial system you will ever encounter is not out there, but within you. Thank you for being here, for continuing to listen. To expand your awareness for that alone is not just a personal act, it is a conscious investment in your future. And to deepen this connection, I want to ask you one thing. If today you could log into your internal account and review the full transaction history of your thoughts, emotions, beliefs, and words from the past year, what do you think your balance would look like? Silence is necessary here, because this is not a theoretical question. It is a gentle reminder that you must begin treating your inner life with the responsibility of someone managing a real account, not just depositing with vague intentions, but with deliberate thought, clear emotion, and unwavering faith. The inner bank does not function like traditional financial systems. It does not calculate based on numbers, follow market rates, or rely on external economic principles. It operates on the energy of life itself, on the frequency of thought, the sincerity of emotion, and your ability to hold belief, even when nothing has yet appeared. In this system, thought is the currency, mental imagery is the transfer slip, emotion is the denomination, and faith is the gold standard. You may have deposited many positive ideas, but if they were not accompanied by emotion, they are like underfunded notes, not strong enough to purchase real outcomes. In contrast, a single thought sent with a vivid image, powerful emotion, and sincere gratitude is recorded by the system as a substantial deposit yielding returns in the form of opportunities, solutions, or precise and unexpected coincidences. What is astonishing is that this bank never rejects a deposit. It does not ask if you're worthy. It does not require you to pass a test. It simply receives. And that is precisely why so many unknowingly send negative thoughts, chronic worries, and scripts of failure, never realizing they're quietly inputting a bankruptcy code for the future. Unlike material banks, which may collapse in global crises, your inner bank never fails. It only reflects what you've sent. If you deposit limiting beliefs, you'll receive limitation. If you deposit gratitude, you'll receive something worthy of gratitude. It is not biased. It does not choose for you. The power of choice rests entirely in your hands. The question is no longer whether you're using this system, it's how. Are you a strategic investor or a random depositor? Are your transactions driven by emotion or by deep intentionality? Every answer you give becomes another instruction. Every conscious decision is a down payment on the future. Why does this matter so much? Because once you truly understand that the inner bank runs nonstop, no holidays, no breaks, no missed entries, you will no longer allow yourself to live one unconscious day. You'll begin checking your internal balance not through numbers, but through states of being. Inner peace is the mark of a strong account. Lingering anxiety is a sign of negative yield. And the beautiful truth is, there's no limit to how many deposits you can make, how often you can rewrite, restructure, and rebuild the entire stream of your consciousness. And if there ever comes a moment when your balance feels low, that is not a judgment. It is an opportunity to begin again, this time with awareness and true authority. You don't need to change the world. You only need to change what you're sending into your inner world. The inner bank will take care of the rest. Thank you for showing up not merely to hear a message, but to become a living part of a system more powerful than any physical bank. A system where wealth is not measured in cash, but in the clarity of your thoughts, the depth of your faith, and the purity of the emotions you choose to carry each day. So today, what will you deposit? The dark side of the spiritual bank, quietly draining your account. Not every deposit in your spiritual bank yields a return. Just like in the material world, there are negative investments, hidden withdrawals people don't recognize until the account runs dry. In the realm of consciousness, this is even more apparent, because here it's not only about accumulation, but also about leakage. You may believe you're planting good seeds, but if you're simultaneously sustaining fear, doubt, resentment, or comparison, those very thoughts are running transactions in reverse, gradually depleting your inner resources, leaving you exhausted, stuck, or lost, even when everything outside appears fine. The dark side of the spiritual bank doesn't lie in the system itself. It does not sabotage, discriminate, or punish. The issue is that it receives everything you send without verification. When you think a negative thought paired with strong emotion, the system records it as a real deposit. When you envision failure, the system doesn't ask whether you want to experience it. It simply understands that you're investing your attention in it. And from that moment, it begins to operate based on the command you've entered. Most people aren't aware that they're running a subconscious financial system through their daily thinking. They believe they're victims of circumstance, while in truth, they are consistently submitting scarcity orders to the storehouse of life. A single complaint may seem harmless, but repeated daily, it becomes an internal ID tag. An unresolved fear becomes an invisible stop order that halts blessings. A wounded memory left unhealed freezes the flow of creative energy. The danger of the dark side doesn't come from its strength, it comes from its silence. No warning bells, no red alerts, just quiet, everyday symptoms. Unexplained fatigue, a sense of being stuck, persistent negative emotions, or disappointing outcomes despite your best efforts. These are not your fault, but they are the byproduct of unchecked past deposits. If you looked at your life as a bank statement, you'd realize that transactions don't only happen during big actions, but in every recurring thought you entertain when no one's watching. Each time you think you're not good enough, not fast enough, not worthy, you're logging another debit in your spiritual account. Every time you react from old patterns, instead of choosing consciously, you reaffirm a low internal balance. Every time you delay the truth or settle for what doesn't serve you, you unconsciously authorize a transfer from your reservoir of creative energy into a state of paralysis. The system does not judge you. Its only function is to record and magnify what you input. But the tragedy is that most of the worst deposits don't come from what you truly desire, they come from what you've grown used to doing. Habits of reaction, habits of worry, habits of retelling the same old story as if it were fate. These are the recurring orders you've sent for years while secretly hoping for a different outcome. That is the silent yet efficient drain. Lack doesn't begin in your wallet. It begins in thought patterns that hold no real value. Beliefs like, there's never enough, I don't have time, I'm not as good as they are, something always goes wrong. These are massive spiritual expenditures. These beliefs don't remain just in your mind. They spill into your emotions, shape the energy you radiate, and ultimately design the circumstances you encounter. From within to without, everything is reflecting the operational system you've long established. If you want to stop this cycle, there's no need to reverse the whole world. You only need to reclaim control over your own deposit and withdrawal privileges. It starts with no longer investing emotion into what no longer serves you. Don't feed fear. Don't validate your wounds. Don't retell your limitations as if they are eternal truths. When you withdraw your power from those thoughts, you stop depositing into the draining account. Your inner account doesn't need saving. It needs reprogramming. And reprogramming doesn't come from grand gestures. It begins with the smallest choices in thought, made consistently. Instead of letting emotional reflexes dominate, you can choose to respond from a different state. A state that need not be perfect, but must be intentional, conscious, and healing. Every negative stream can be interrupted the moment you stop fueling it. And in that very moment, the system begins recalculating. There is no late fee. No limitation, only the need for a single choice, then another, and another. Because if the dark side could quietly drain your account, then the light side can just as quietly rebuild it at a recovery speed stronger than any equation ever written. Spiritual counterfight. Why your belief yields no return. Not every belief has the power to produce results. Just as not every bill carries transactional value, not every affirmation, every prayer, or every positive visualization is accepted by your spiritual bank as a legitimate deposit. In the material world, a counterfeit bill can look exactly like the real thing, same colors, same symbols, same size, but if it lacks authentic validation, it holds no real value. You may hold it in your hand, pass it to others, but the moment it enters a legitimate system, it's instantly rejected, not because its appearance is flawed, but because its essence is false. The spiritual realm operates by the same principle. A person can recite hundreds of affirmations daily, pray with a persuasive voice, or visualize their ideal life in great detail. But if none of that is backed by genuine emotion, by full presence, by deep conviction, then all that effort is merely an empty ritual. It's like writing checks from an account that doesn't exist. It's like calling the wind without having any real wind within. That is why so many people follow every step of personal development, yet see no change in their lives. Their words are not lacking. What's missing is the authentic energy behind them. Spiritual counterfeits typically originate from two sources. First is mechanical repetition, doing something positive out of habit, while the mind is elsewhere. You say, "I am abundant," but your heart is tied up in anxiety. You write, "I attract opportunities," yet feel nothing as you write. Second is forcing belief before it's ready, turning faith into a burden rather than a flow. You try to believe you're worthy, while most of your mind is still resisting. The result? An internal contradiction, where you're sending two opposing signals and the energy collapses before it can create any outcome. Your inner banking system cannot be fooled by surface appearance. It doesn't care how beautiful your words sound. It doesn't assess your worth by how often you repeat a mantra. It listens for something else entirely, the invisible resonance that emanates from your heart when you think, when you speak, when you pray. If that frequency is weak, if the emotion is hollow, if the image you visualize isn't rooted in a true sense of worthiness, then that currency holds no purchasing power. Not because you're wrong, but because this system only responds to what carries real life force. The subconscious doesn't speak the language of poetic eloquence. It doesn't require long explanations. It only understands clarity, felt truth, and conscious repetition. A simple thought infused with sincere emotion has more power than hundreds of hollow affirmations. A moment of genuine gratitude sends a stronger signal than a hurried page of journaling. A modest visualization carried by absolute trust can open more doors than a flawless plan without soul. If you've ever felt disappointed that the techniques you practiced didn't bring results, it may not be because you did them wrong, but because you were depositing spiritual counterfeits. You were trying to impose belief with intellect. Instead of letting the heart lead your conviction, you repeated a phrase like a magic spell, without pausing to feel whether it was real for you. And your inner bank, honest beyond all compromise, accepts only what is truly alive. There's no need to panic or feel lacking. You only need to begin adjusting the quality of your deposits. Instead of forcing yourself to think positively, feel into something small that you genuinely believe is good. Instead of declaring abundance while still feeling empty, recall a specific moment when something arrived right on time. Turn affirmations into reminders, not pressure. Let your prayers become affirmations, not pleas. When you change the source of your belief, you transform the entire power behind each deposit. Real currency always has certain qualities. It's issued from a clear center, backed by recognized value, and accepted by a legitimate system. In the spiritual bank, real currency is a thought issued from conscious awareness, backed by authentic emotion, and repeated with the consistency of living belief. From there, the system not only records it, it multiplies it, yields interest, and manifests results you could never predict by logic alone. So don't let your journey of inner growth become a series of forged transactions. Stop, breathe, and ask yourself sincerely, is what I'm thinking real? Is the emotion I'm carrying true? Am I repeating things that no longer reflect my inner worth? The answers you uncover will unlock a new form of spiritual deposit where every thought holds weight, every emotion carries purchasing power, and every belief is accepted by the universe as a unit of real, living value. Activating the account, the ritual that opens your spiritual bank. No one can use a bank account that hasn't been formally opened. No matter how much potential wealth you possess, until the paperwork is completed, the signature confirmed, and the ownership declared, the system will still regard you as an outsider. In the spiritual realm, this principle remains just as precise. You may carry within you a treasury of infinite potential. You may be surrounded by the abundant supply of the universe, but unless you make a clear, conscious declaration that you are an official participant, the subconscious will receive no signal to act. It will remain still, waiting, reflecting a temporary state of hesitation and indecision. Activating the inner account is not a religious ritual, nor a symbolic gesture. It is a deep covenant between your conscious and your subconscious mind, between your external self and your inner essence. It is the moment you decide to stop standing on the sidelines. You stop watching others live with a conviction you once doubted. You stop postponing your faith in yourself and instead make a bold, unmistakable declaration that you are ready to utilize what has always been available to you. This ritual begins with a simple act, but one with tremendous transformative power. Take a notebook, something with real weight in your hands. Do not write in an app. Do not type it into your phone. Let your fingers touch the page. Let the stroke of the pen form a new pathway between your mind and your awareness. On the very first page, write a clear title, no ambiguity, no disguise. Declare that this is your spiritual bank, linked to your name, aligned with the identity you are now choosing to elevate. The subconscious remembers physical rituals far more than abstract theory. It doesn't care how many motivational talks you've heard, how many profound books you've read, or how deeply you understand universal laws. It only responds to what you embody through full presence. When you handwrite the first line in your inner journal, you are not merely opening a new account, you are generating a vibrational signal. A silent yet powerful confirmation that you've crossed the threshold of waiting and entered the state of spiritual action. The first entry in this account does not need to be grand. It doesn't have to be a major achievement or a life-altering turning point. It only needs to be living proof that invisible support has once reached you. 3 lines are enough. 3 moments in the past when you were helped right on time, in ways you couldn't explain. Perhaps it was a sudden phone call that brought an opportunity, money arriving when you needed it most, a person showing up with advice at just the right moment, or a door opening after all others had closed. Write down those 3 moments. No need for lengthy analysis, just honest description, and most importantly, feel that moment again. When you write these down with sincere gratitude, you are making your first deposit into your inner account. And here's the profound truth. You are not depositing from a place of emptiness. You are reinvesting energy that once already flowed to you. In other words, you are confirming to your subconscious that provision has always existed, and you are simply reopening a stream that has never ceased rather than trying to create something new from nothing. The power of this ritual lies in its bridge between lived experience and current belief. When you cite real evidence of past divine assistance, your conscious mind no longer needs to convince itself. The subconscious sees, in its own language, that you are not hallucinating, you are remembering a stream of truth. And that remembrance becomes the ignition point for the entire system to reawaken. From the moment you write those first 3 lines, everything else you enter into that notebook will carry a new power. Every line of gratitude, every vision, every affirmation you add becomes a further deposit into your now formally activated spiritual account. Just as signing the contract opens a physical bank account, now every transaction counts. Every deposit is registered, and the system begins to yield interest under universal law without you needing to control or manipulate it. No one else can open this account for you. No one may sign in your place. And no one can verify your identity in the inner banking system except you. And the activation requires no elaborate ritual or external approval. It only needs a piece of paper, a pen, and one clear decision from within, that from this day forward you will no longer live as one who hopes for abundance, but as one who has officially activated their right to the spiritual flow that has always belonged to them. Everything begins from here. And from here on, nothing will be coincidence. The treasure principle. Where your heart is, there your life will be. Not everything you possess is treasure, and not everything you desire will bring transformation. In a world governed by energy and consciousness, what you consistently pay attention to is what you are truly investing in. It's not what you say you want aloud, but what you nourish in your mind, what you feed with repeated emotion each day. That is the real treasure. When Jesus said, "Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also," it was not merely a religious metaphor. It was a precise operating law, undeniable in every area of life. In the system of your spiritual bank, wherever you place your attention is where you pour your spiritual capital. And that bank doesn't multiply based on random intention, it expands based on the repeated flow of awareness you send into it each day. You may say you desire freedom, but if most of your mental focus is on financial worry, that is where your treasure truly lies. You may say you pray for peace, but if your day is dominated by tension, fear, and defensive thinking, then your subconscious sees that you are pouring energy into what you don't want. And your inner system cannot distinguish between desire and reality. It only registers where your life force is being sent and multiplies accordingly. Ask yourself, with honesty and without decoration, where are you placing your treasure right now? What thoughts are you feeding most throughout the day? What are you worrying about? What are you emotionally reacting to? You don't need to check your list of goals or revisit your vision board. Just look at the loop of thoughts that repeats when no one is watching. That's the investment portfolio of your reality. Because treasure does not lie in what you shout in the morning, but in what you whisper when no one hears. Where the heart goes, energy follows. And where energy flows, life begins to move. You don't live inside the words you say once you live inside the thoughts you repeat often and the emotions you embed in them. A person who dreams of success but clings to a failure-based mindset is unconsciously programming the very direction their life will take. And the subconscious, like a perfectly honest machine, will only create what it is fed through repetition. That is why reading a single sentence each day, done the right way, is not just a ritual, it's a spiritual reorientation. When you whisper to yourself each morning, "Where my treasure is, there my heart will be also," you are not simply quoting an ancient truth. You are reopening the mental door to observe clearly where you've been placing your treasure all this time. You begin to watch yourself from a higher level, the level of someone with the power to choose again, the level of someone who owns the map of their emotional world. This is the power of the voice within, not just a sound in your head, but a sacred space you return to. A place where you can recalibrate your direction, where you can cleanse the mind like someone checking the condition of their own vault. Try this for a few days. Each morning, before you pick up your phone, before the world invites you to react, spend just a few minutes silently repeating that line. No rush, no performance. Just a gentle, slow press of each word into your awareness. Then pause and ask yourself, where did I place my treasure yesterday? When practiced often enough, this isn't just repetition. It becomes a finely tuned internal auditing system, allowing you to recognize misaligned flows and consciously correct them. You don't have to force optimism. You don't need to manufacture fake positivity. Just be honest. Notice where your energy truly gathers, where your mind returns most often, where your emotional loyalty lives even when you never speak of it. That is where your treasure is being built. And if that place is making you tired, stop sending more. If that space is draining you, withdraw from it, at least in awareness. No need for drastic action. Just stop feeding it. From there, you begin to choose again. A spiritual current doesn't need force, it needs clarity. An inner map doesn't need perfection, it needs truth. When you realize that your treasure is not the material you accumulate, but the direction your mind is faithfully traveling toward, you begin to transform how you live each day. Not by doing more, but by thinking more clearly. Not by reaching goals faster, but by investing your life force in what truly deserves it. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And wherever your heart rests, that is where your life begins to shift. The official declaration, a vibrational covenant with the universe. Every orderly system begins with a formal declaration. In the physical world, no account is opened without a signature. No agreement holds power without a firm commitment spoken aloud. Likewise, in the realm of the spiritual bank, there will be no official flow unless you have clearly declared your readiness to become a rightful participant. The subconscious does not respond to how many things you wish for. It responds only when it sees that you've chosen. It is not persuaded by fragile thoughts or affirmations repeated in doubt. It requires a command issued from the deep layers of awareness, a message charged with clarity, undistracted and undelayed. The official declaration is not the first step, it is the step that gives structure and legitimacy to everything that follows. A declaration is not merely a sentence, it is the vibrational ID of your intent. When you speak a statement with your full presence, you are not merely communicating with words, you are generating a frequency. A current that reaches into your internal operating system, which is untouched by logic or analysis. What matters is not the beauty of the sentence or the perfection of grammar, but how aligned you are with it when you say it. Every word is a current of energy, and when spoken with full trust, felt deeply, and supported by total internal agreement, the system responds instantly. A declaration does not come from lack. It does not carry the energy of pleading, of weariness, or surrender. It emerges from a place of knowing you are not searching for something new. You are activating what has always been. You are not begging the universe for a chance. You are confirming to it that you are ready to take your rightful place as a receiver. A powerful declaration is not the loudest statement. It is the one that rings truest to you. It may be short and simple, but when it comes from a place of inner balance, it holds the power to dissolve old limitations. And the universe, or whatever name you assign to the divine source, does not respond to the complexity of your words. It responds to the purity and precision of your energy. You may begin with something like this. I hereby open my account in the infinite bank of universal intelligence. Every thought rooted in faith is a valid deposit. Gratitude is my access code. I am the authorized depositor, and I am ready to receive. This need not be spoken aloud, but when you read it, pause at each phrase. Feel the layers of energy emerging from within. Each part carries its own charge. When you declare that you're opening your account, you're permitting the system to activate flow. When you name the bank infinite, You are expanding your mental boundaries beyond learned limitations. When you affirm faith as deposit and gratitude as access, you are reprogramming your inner system in accordance with the highest spiritual law. The subconscious does not respond to vague questions, but it reacts immediately to certainty. And a declaration is the most certain form through which consciousness instructs the subconscious to begin synchronized operation. This is not technical. It is a profound agreement between will and energy. When these two align, transformation begins. From the moment you declare with clarity, you are no longer one who waits for outcomes. You become the rightful sender. And just like any legitimate bank, once your status is confirmed, every deposit you make from that moment on is counted, recorded, accumulated, and multiplied according to the frequency you sustain. What matters is not how many times you say the declaration, but whether you speak it from the right place. One time, from the core, is enough to trigger a turning point. A single sentence, delivered from a nervous system in full agreement, can carry enough force to open a door long sealed. Because the subconscious does not measure time, it only measures authenticity. And when your intent, your words, and your emotions converge in full truth, the system registers it as a serious commitment. From that point, all energy is reallocated. Old deposits begin to be reviewed. Limiting patterns begin to weaken. Repeating storylines lose traction. In their place, a new structure begins to take shape, one built upon the fresh vibration you just established through your official declaration. A covenant with the universe does not require paper. It is signed in frequency. And the clearest signature is the echo of your inner voice when you decide to send the final message. I have chosen. I am ready. I am in. From that moment, everything begins to operate under a new principle, one where you are no longer the one who waits, but the one who holds access to the infinite supply, now flowing through the sacred space within that you had forgotten until now. Reprogramming your inner financial mindset. From random to intentional, every repeated outcome originates from a thought system sustained unconsciously. No circumstance appears purely by accident, not when you take a closer look at the inner patterns that led you there. In the realm of spiritual finance, where emotion is currency and thought is capital operating without direction, is the very reason many remain trapped in the cycle of scarcity and expectation. It's not that you're not trying, but that you're sending out too many conflicting signals. It's not that you lack faith, but that you've placed it in the wrong places. And it's not that you haven't invested, but that your investments have been random, unconscious, and unmanaged. The subconscious does not reject any thought you submit. It doesn't evaluate right or wrong, weigh pros or cons. It simply executes what you continuously repeat with emotion and attention. This means that if you don't reprogram the way you think about abundance, your inner system will keep operating the same way, yielding the same results, mirroring a reality that never changes. No external crisis is needed, no dramatic intervention. If you don't renew your thought structures, the old ones will remain the default blueprint. Reprogramming doesn't mean you have to become someone completely different. It doesn't ask you to deny your past or erase every doubt. Reprogramming is simply the shift from unconscious reaction to intentional choice. It means that instead of letting thoughts drive your emotions each day, you begin to choose which thoughts are allowed to stay, which emotions deserve to be nourished, and which responses hold genuine spiritual return. In the material world, a wise financial manager is not the one with the most money, but the one who knows exactly where the money flows. In the inner world, someone with a thriving spiritual account is not the one who speaks endlessly about abundance, but the one who clearly sees what they are thinking, feeling, and repeating every day. And intention doesn't come from micromanagement, it comes from foundational awareness. A conscious individual begins to notice even the smallest withdrawal order they issue, like a passing complaint. They reset their state before emotions spiral. They don't wait for a crisis to correct. They invest in advance, with awareness. Reprogramming your inner financial mindset begins with honestly reviewing three elements: where you place your attention, what emotions you're nurturing, and how often you repeat outdated thought patterns. Once you observe these with sincerity, you'll realize that most of what you're depositing into your spiritual bank is not intentional. It's inherited from your environment, memories, and habits. And this is the breaking point. No investment succeeds if the investor has no idea what they're investing in. This is even more true within. If you don't know what thoughts you're consistently entertaining, you have no right to be surprised by unexpected results. Intention is not forced effort. It's gentle, precise awareness in every response. Someone with a healthy inner financial mindset doesn't allow themselves to sink into negative emotion for too long, nor do they fake positivity. They simply refuse to deposit energy into feelings that cannot yield return. They don't repeat limiting narratives. They don't invest emotional capital in what they don't want to expand. And if they make a wrong deposit, they withdraw consciously. This might sound abstract, but it's deeply practical because every day you are choosing. Whether you're aware of it or not, you're deciding what kind of energy to trade with yourself. Shifting from random thought to intentional thinking doesn't require a crisis. It only needs a decision. One moment where you pause and realize, if every thought is an investment unit, then from now on I will not allow myself to deposit carelessly. You refuse to waste energy on useless internal dialogues. You no longer let your mind be open land for all kinds of intrusions. You begin to manage it like a guardian of treasure, learning to use power wisely. From that moment on, every thought you send carries the imprint of conscious selection. Every emotion you sustain is monitored by the light of awareness. And every image you hold in mind is weighed as a blueprint for future reality. This is not rigid discipline, it is liberation. Because only when you consciously choose again can you live in the flow of a spiritual economy that never stops producing return. And only when you act with deliberate intention will your inner bank begin to reflect results of real value. Your life is not a passive balance sheet. It is a living energy chart, one you create daily, hourly. And if you become clear-eyed enough to see each transaction as it silently unfolds, you will no longer wish to live like a random depositor. You will live like a wise investor, one who knows that true wealth never comes from what you wait for, but from how you think, feel, and choose with intention. The consequence of misaligned deposits. Why effort doesn't always yield results. In any banking system, if you continually deposit funds into the wrong account, no matter how large the amount, you will ultimately be unable to withdraw anything of real value. In the spiritual bank, this principle becomes even more strict and precise. Because here, you're not just depositing with actions, you're depositing through thoughts, emotions, and invisible commands issued daily by you. The problem isn't that you aren't doing the work, it's that you may be doing it the wrong way. It's not a lack of effort, but effort misdirected. And it's not about unworthiness, it's about placing trust in a belief system that cannot generate return. Many people try to live positively, work hard, and set clear goals, only to find themselves returning to square one. They read books, study techniques, apply every method, and yet results remain stagnant, unclear, or worse, move in the opposite direction of what they hoped for. If you found yourself in this space, don't be quick to conclude that you're not good enough or that life is unfair. The deeper answer often lies in something much quieter. You've been depositing into the wrong spiritual account for far too long. Misaligned deposits in the inner bank don't mean you're not trying to invest in the positive. It means you're depositing contradictory energies at the same time. You speak of abundance, but carry the feeling of lack. You pray for health, yet maintain constant fear of illness. You affirm your worth, but silently believe life is a constant struggle. These deposits are not rejected, but they create conflicting signals within the system, canceling each other out, muddying the energy, and delaying results. The subconscious doesn't process information the way your rational mind does. It doesn't ask whether your intentions are noble or how much knowledge you've acquired. It only responds to the signal that is strongest, most frequently repeated, and most emotionally charged. And sadly, the dominant signal most people emit is not their desire, it's their fear. Fear tends to be vivid, emotionally intense, and rehearsed daily. Meanwhile, positive intentions are often shallow, logical, and emotionally unanchored. The consequence of sending misaligned signals doesn't arrive all at once. It accumulates subtly over time. It layers conflicting commands, blurs clarity, and diminishes your ability to feel. You lose touch with which emotions are authentic and which are just old reflexes. You repeat affirmations, but no longer believe them as you once did. You take action, but feel no real motivation. These are signs of a system overloaded by years of mixed signals, and unless you pause to reset the programming, you'll stay caught in the exhausting loop between effort and disappointment. The truth is, no action can override a flawed belief system. If your core belief is, "I am unworthy," then every action layered on top will be drained before it reaches its potential. On the other hand, when your inner structure is aligned, when you're sending a clear, consistent signal of abundance, trust, and connection to infinite supply, even the smallest action can produce significant results. Not because the action is powerful, but because it's backed by an account that's been funded, ready, and receptive. So if you've been working hard and seeing little movement, don't blame the outcome. Check the system behind the sending. Observe the sentences you repeat each day. Feel into the emotions you maintain in silence. Look closely at the images you habitually visualize when no one is watching. Those are the real deposit slips. And if most of them conflict with what you say you want, then the answer is clear. You don't need more effort, you need to stop sending contradictions. Shifting from misaligned to aligned deposits doesn't require a grand revelation. It just takes one honest moment. A pause in which you stop justifying, stop blaming, and simply look directly at what you've chosen to sustain in your mind. When you see it clearly, the adjustment comes naturally. And from that point, every future deposit begins to return with more clarity, not because life suddenly changed, but because you stopped jamming the system with mixed signals. The spiritual bank never rejects you. It doesn't operate on merit or scoring, but it does demand honesty, and the reward for that honesty is reconnection to the innate creative force that has always lived inside you. When you deposit with clarity, life responds with clarity. When you're consistent, results become inevitable. And when you act from a grounded foundation, there is no need to race, because you know with certainty that you are investing in the only place that will never fail you, an inner world that has been purified and is now ready to receive increase. The handwritten act, imprinting neurological pathways to abundance. There is a seemingly simple act that carries the power of profound reprogramming. It is handwriting. Not typing on a keyboard, not speaking aloud, but taking pen to paper and writing with your hand. Because when you write, you're not just using language, you're engaging your body, your mind, your emotions, and your imagination all at once. Handwriting is not just the translation of thought into words, it is the process of carving a directive into your nervous system, imprinting a spiritual command, and gradually forming a new vibrational pattern in the subconscious. The subconscious remembers what is repeated with emotional intensity. And when you sit down undisturbed by devices, undistracted by images or sound, and clearly write what you choose to believe, to embody, and to bring into reality, you are imprinting a neurological instruction into the ledger of your inner bank. You are not merely writing words, you are forming real vibrational architecture in the unseen world. That structure becomes the foundation for new feelings, new beliefs, and new purposeful actions. Many people dwell in vague desire for abundance, yet never touch it because that vision has never been clearly etched in their mind. They think of money as something they need, but can't clearly visualize the state they would live in if they truly felt secure. They speak of financial freedom, yet behave like someone still ruled by the fear of lack. This is the gap between concept and embodiment. And that gap can only be closed through consistent, concrete action that penetrates the nervous system, like handwriting. When you write an affirmation such as, "I am ready to receive spiritual wealth," or "I allow myself to enter the flow of abundance," and you repeat this act daily, with full presence, you are building a new pathway in your nervous system. Each time you write, you reinforce that path. And slowly, once the system becomes familiar with that state, the subconscious begins to treat it as default. From then on, you no longer react to life with outdated emotions. You begin to respond from the frequency of someone ready to receive prosperity. No strain, no forced positivity, simply the natural expression of a new inner foundation. Handwriting becomes sacred when done with sincerity. It becomes a ritual, a daily contract with yourself, line by line, in silence and concentration. This simple act reawakens dormant parts of the brain, reopens locked doors of belief, and rekindles the self-image you may have long buried beneath years of self-doubt. You write to remember. You write to restore. You write to rebuild the bridge between your inner world and your lived reality. This is the power of the voice within, not just a voice you hear, but a space you return to. Not an outer sound, but an inner sanctuary you construct with your hand, your presence, and your belief letter by letter. To make handwriting effective, you don't need a multitude of words. You need clarity and repetition. A single affirmation, written each morning and each night for 30 consecutive days, can shift the way you see the world because you no longer react from old reflexes. You begin to perceive life through the lens of someone who has accepted abundance as their natural essence. And when your perception shifts, your emotional response follows. When emotion shifts, action shifts. And when action shifts, results cannot help but follow. Writing is also how you clarify what you truly want. Many times, when you write something down, you'll notice it doesn't align with what you really feel. That is your moment to pause, listen, and adjust the language. Writing becomes your mirror. You write to see where you are. You write so you don't lose your way on this inner journey. And if you keep this habit, you'll begin to notice subtle changes in your choices, in your emotional reactions, in the quiet sense of assurance that arises from within without needing any external proof. No tool is more powerful than conscious repetition. And in the vibrational realm, a single handwritten line, infused with meaning, outweighs 100 spoken words, lost without imprint. Writing is how you construct your new inner map. Every sentence, every word is a brick you lay to pave your path to alignment toward the place where your spiritual account is activated and begins to yield in accordance with the sacred order you've chosen. From that moment on, abundance is no longer something far away. It becomes your habit, your state, the space you return to daily, as you would to your own home. Morning affirmation, the unshakable power of simplicity. Morning is the threshold between two worlds. One is the depth of the subconscious you've just returned, from where beliefs, fears, and desires have temporarily softened. The other is the tangible world you're about to enter, where you act, respond, and create results. That moment of transition is a golden window, the precise time to plant a seed, a clear spiritual directive that can shape your entire day. And that seed is a single affirmation. It doesn't need to be long. It doesn't need to be complex. One simple statement, spoken at the right time and at the right emotional frequency, can be more impactful than an hour of meditation if you are truly present when you speak it. The subconscious responds not to fancy language or intellectual reasoning, but to simplicity. It listens to what is repeated with consistency and absorbs the vibrational tone attached to those words. The power lies not in the words themselves, but in the honesty, the alignment, and the repetition that creates new neural paths within the mind. If you want your spiritual bank to yield returns, you must feed the system with clear instructions. A morning affirmation is how you open the day's internal trading session. Just like an investor chooses a strategy before the market opens, you must choose your dominant mental state before the day begins. Will you operate from worry or from trust, from scarcity or from flow? It all begins with one intentional sentence deposited into your spiritual account the moment you awaken. You might choose a phrase as simple as, "I trust in the abundance that flows through me," or, "Today, I welcome the best that life has to offer." What matters is not the elegance of the sentence, but your emotional connection to it when you say it. You don't need to force belief. Simply relax into it. Stay present, and let the words sink into the quiet space between your first thoughts of the day. If practiced consistently, the subconscious will start recording. And as it does, it will gradually recalibrate your reflexes, shift your emotional baseline, and unlock capacities you've never known you had. A morning affirmation is like selecting the soundtrack for your day. If you choose the right frequency, all that follows begins to harmonize. You'll find yourself responding more slowly to negativity, spotting subtle opportunities, and feeling less shaken by outer events. Not because the world has changed, but because you've changed your starting point, a quiet, intentional, trust-filled point where you remember you are the one sending the first instruction to reality's feedback loop. The beauty of this ritual is that no one needs to witness it for it to be effective. In fact, its deepest power often arises when done alone, in silence, before the day's noise sets in. You can close your eyes, place a hand over your heart, and whisper the words like a sacred message to yourself. You can write it down, or simply hold the thought with a gentle smile. What matters most is not the form, but the internal connection. And when you truly touch that phrase from within, you'll feel it a subtle wave moving through you, signaling that the command has been received. Many doubt the power of what's simple. They believe transformation must come from something large, complex, and visibly proven. But in the spiritual realm, strength lies not in scale, but in purity. A single drop of water, falling at the right moment, can shift the flow of an entire system. One morning affirmation, repeated with the right spirit, can open a new portal in how you see life, see yourself, and see the future. So don't underestimate the value of choosing one sentence each morning. It's not just a habit, it's a ritual one that activates your spiritual economy and sets your energy flow in motion. And finally, remember, this is the power of voice within. Not just a voice you hear, but a space you return to. It's not a phrase you repeat mechanically, but a sacred place you revisit each morning to remind yourself that you have the authority to choose your frequency. You may not control every event in your day, but you do control where it begins. And when that beginning is steady, bright, and clear, the rest of the journey naturally follows the direction you've already chosen internally. Prayer through awareness, not a plea, but a declaration. Have you ever prayed in desperation, fallen to your knees, pleading, wrapping your words in beauty while your heart trembled in fear? If so, you're not alone. That is how many people pray when they face hardship. But have you ever realized that it is precisely that posture of fear that renders the prayer ineffective? Prayer is not a plea. It is not a vague hope that something good might happen if you are good enough, faithful enough, or desperate enough. True prayer is the act of declaring what you already know to be true, not what you wish were true, but what your soul already recognizes as an unshakable principle. The difference lies not in the words, but in the inner state. A declaration rooted in awareness has the power to shape reality. A plea born of fear only reinforces a subconscious sense of lack. So which kind of prayer are you living in? Do you speak to the universe like a child begging to be rescued? Or like a conscious being reaffirming sacred truth within your own mind? There is no need to rush this answer, but I invite you to pause and feel into the question, because that very pause might change your entire relationship with the divine, with life, and with yourself. When you pray from awareness, there is no need to beg. You don't need to shout. You don't need to force belief. You simply speak what you know. You speak with calm, certainty, with a trust that doesn't need to perform. Like declaring that the sun will rise tomorrow, you don't struggle to believe it. You simply remember that it is a given. And when you bring that same certainty into your prayer, you open a new channel in the subconscious one, without trembling, without doubt, just clear, quiet conviction. We were not taught to pray with awareness. We grew up in a world that made us believe prayer is only for the weak, the desperate, the broken. But the opposite is true. Prayer is the expression of inner strength. It is the sign that you've returned to the sacred center of who you are. It is the act of someone who remembers, not someone who begs. You don't pray to change God. You pray to recalibrate yourself. And that shift begins with a simple declaration. I am a part of infinite life. I choose to live in harmony with the principle of abundance. I believe everything I need is already present in the divine order. When you repeat such truths, not to convince anyone, but to reboot your internal operating system, you lift your frequency to a place where every decision, every emotion, and every step you take reflects one deep knowing: I am supported. I am guided. I was born for fullness. So have you ever prayed from awareness? Not to get something, but to remember that you already have everything. Not to change someone else, but to shift your own lens of perception. If today is the first time you've paused to feel this concept, know that it's no coincidence. You are part of the journey home to your own inner power. Thank you for showing up with such sincerity. Prayer is not a formula, it is a frequency. And once you shift into the right frequency, results begin to appear automatically. That frequency is born from simplicity, stillness, and gratitude felt before anything has manifested outwardly. Because everything that happens on the outside is only a mirror of what has already been declared on the inside. If you truly believe this, then your daily prayer will no longer be a habit. It becomes a portal, a moment of awakening. A silent symphony calling you back to your deepest inner wisdom. When you understand this, fear about results begins to fade. You stop trying to control when or how things unfold. You start to live in the pure state of allowing. And it is within that state that miracles happen, not because you forced them, but because you opened the door. Not because you pleaded, but because you declared what has always been yours. And that is how the spiritual bank begins to yield, not from supplication, but from the quiet certainty you carry in your breath, your choices, and the words you speak to life itself. To pray from awareness is a turning point. Once you cross it, you no longer ask the universe when your desire will arrive. Instead, you ask yourself, how will I live today as someone who has already received it? And when you begin to live in the answer, you no longer need the wish. You are already standing inside the fulfilled declaration, and that no force on earth can ever take away from you. The mirror is a reflection of the subconscious, a dialogue with your own soul. Each time you stand before a mirror, you're not just seeing your face. You're gazing into a living reflection of your current subconscious state. Your eyes carry the imprint of long-held beliefs. Your expression bears the traces of stories you've repeated silently for years. The way you look at yourself harshly, indifferently, or with quiet compassion speaks volumes about how you talk to yourself when no one is watching. A mirror does not lie. It doesn't retouch like a photo. It doesn't apply filters to soften the truth. It simply reflects the level of self-awareness you're bringing into the moment. And this is precisely where an essential dialogue begins, not with the world, but with yourself. Every morning, before you meet people, face circumstances, or encounter challenges, The first person you need to meet is you. Not through makeup or social masks, but through a raw, unfiltered, honest gaze into your own eyes. Many avoid the mirror or look into it out of routine. But those who are awake know that standing in front of a mirror is a ritual, not to fix your hair, but to realign your consciousness. Not to find flaws, but to ask a deeper question. Who is running the show today? Is it a frightened ego? Or is it an awakening soul? Are you a victim of the external? Or are you a creator of inner reality? What would change if you began speaking to your reflection each morning as though you were talking to someone who loves you unconditionally? What if, instead of criticizing that face, you whispered affirmations like, "I'm here with you. I believe you can do this. I forgive every doubt we've ever carried"? In doing so, you're not merely speaking aloud, you're reprogramming the flow from conscious mind to subconscious, from old memory to new decision. The subconscious remembers through emotionally charged imagery, and one of the most powerful images it receives daily is your face in the mirror. If you look at it with criticism, you're signaling unworthiness. If you look with sadness, you're reinforcing a low vibration reality. But if you dare to pause, hold eye contact, and breathe slowly, you create a sacred space where you directly converse with the energy that governs your internal belief system. No one can speak the words you most need to hear. No voice holds more imprinting power than your own spoken through your lips, seen in your own eyes, grounded in your own trust. This isn't fluffy self-help. It's neurological, spiritual, and emotional architecture. And one of the most transformative tools to rebuild self-belief is using your face as both symbol and ally as a companion in your evolution. This mirror dialogue requires honesty. You don't have to fake strength if you feel exhausted, but you can look into your own eyes and say, "I know you're tired today, but I'm here. We'll walk slower, but we'll walk together." You don't need grand declarations, just enough sincerity to soften the cycle of self-judgment that's been repeating for too long. And from that neutral space, you can begin rebuilding your inner image with clarity and strength. The key word here is presence. When you stand before the mirror not rushed, not distracted, you are coming home. You're bringing energy back to center. You don't need hour-long therapy sessions, just a few honest moments each day to remember. You don't live in the outer world. You live in the relationship between you and yourself. And the mirror is the first gateway back to that relationship. One remarkable shift occurs when you make mirror dialogue a habit. You begin seeing others differently because you no longer react from unacknowledged pain, no longer play out the roles you were conditioned into. When you learn to see yourself with tenderness, you begin viewing the world with gentleness, not because everyone becomes kinder, but because you've stopped waging war within. And a person who no longer battles themselves becomes a carrier of healing wherever they go. So, hold your mirror like a friend. Each morning, before anyone else says a word to you, let yourself be the first voice you hear, speaking kindly, honestly, and with belief. This is not symbolic. This is a spiritual ritual. It is the choice to live deliberately, to live with awareness, and to live as someone who knows they are inherently worthy, because you are. And one day, as the image in the mirror begins to shift, so too will the image of your entire life, without permission from anyone, but through one quiet decision made by you. Transmuting. Attention. The true treasure is focus. Your greatest asset is not money. It's not even time. It is attention. What you're looking at, listening to, thinking about, that's where all your life energy is being poured. And if you're not conscious of this, you will unknowingly invest the fullness of your being into things that are unworthy, only to wonder why your life feels unproductive, unfulfilled, and drained of vitality. Most people think focus is simply about working more efficiently, remembering better, or reaching goals faster. But in the deeper dimension of awareness, Focus is not just a skill, it is the master key that governs the entire law of cause and effect. Wherever your attention goes, you are planting seeds. The longer you stay focused, the more you nourish that seed. And soon enough, you begin living in the garden that matches what you've been cultivating. Your mind is like a child curious, easily distracted by lights and noise. Without clear guidance, it wastes all its energy on fragments, scattered bits of information, idle talk, fleeting emotions. The result is a life of exhaustion, fragmentation, and a vague sense of lack you can't quite name. That is what happens when you lose your focus to things that do not feed your soul. Transmuting attention is the greatest inner shift of an awakened person. You don't need to do more, you need to see more clearly. You don't need to overexert, you need to gather what has been dispersed. Every thought, every action, every word, if aligned with a central axis, which is conscious awareness, begins to return you to presence. You stop being pulled by the world, and instead, you start pulling the world back into the order of your inner reality. There is a profound truth that few recognize. What you call your external reality is nothing but the long-held reflection of your internal focus. When you focus on anxiety, your life fills with chaos. When you focus on lack, all opportunities seem hidden. But when you shift your attention to gratitude, to the abundance present in every breath, it's as if a new current opens, carrying you into possibilities you never saw before. Focus is not about forcing the mind to sit still. It's about choosing to release what is not worthy. When you decide that your attention will no longer be hijacked by social media, by excessive fear, by old stories, you begin to clear the lens of your perception. You stop fragmenting. You become whole. And from that wholeness, you don't just work better, you live more truthfully. That's when you realize your true treasure was never out there. It's not in your bank account. It's not in others' approval. It lies in your power to choose what you think, what you focus on, and what you live for. Every time you bring your attention back to center, you reclaim authorship over your own life. When you sit in silence, close your eyes, and simply follow your breath, you are performing the most sacred act, bringing attention back to where it belongs. No pleading required, no complex rituals needed. Just presence, clear, quiet, and real. This is something no one else can do for you. And it is precisely what separates a person living on autopilot from one living with intention. This is the power of the voice within, not just a voice you hear, but a space you return to. When you pause and listen to the voice inside, not with your ears, but with stillness, you know you are home. And in that home, there is no chaos, no pressure, no comparison, only clarity, warmth, and knowing. No one can take your attention unless you allow it. No one can shake your inner peace unless you still react. And no force out there can control a person who has chosen consciously what to give their attention to. That kind of attention is creative energy. It is the raw material with which you build a new reality. It is the light that guides your steps, so you no longer stumble in the dark of old patterns. Focus is not a destination. It's the lantern you already hold. The only question is, what are you illuminating today? And is that worthy of receiving the most precious substance of all your life energy? Because the real treasure was never far. It has always lived wherever your inner light chooses to shine. Valuing emotions, spiritual currency, comes in different denominations. Not all emotions carry the same weight. Just like the cash in your hand, some bills buy you a loaf of bread, while others are enough to launch an entire journey. In the physical world, value is translated into numbers. But in the spiritual realm, value is measured by the depth and purity of emotion. A person may utter positive words all day long, but if the emotions behind them are shallow or automatic, those words carry no real power. In contrast, a single heartfelt affirmation rooted in sincerity can unlock the door to a life-altering breakthrough. Emotion is the underlying energy that carries every thought you send into the universe. Thought is merely the form. Emotion is the fuel. If thought is the check, emotion is the value printed on it. And if you look closely, most of your daily thoughts are repetitive, accompanied by low-value emotions, lacking ignition, lacking sincerity, lacking direction to bear real results. The universe does not respond to your words. It mirrors the frequency you emit, and that frequency is your emotional state. A desperate prayer filled with fear only amplifies the vibration of lack. Meanwhile, a moment of deep gratitude, spoken or silent, sends out a crystal-clear signal that you are ready to receive. The purer, lighter, and deeper the emotion, the more potent its spiritual value. That is why so many people work tirelessly, speak endlessly, and affirm constantly yet see little change, because they have yet to measure the emotional currency they're actually transmitting. A single sentence can carry the worth of a penny or $1 billion depending on the emotional quality behind it. Just as a clean, intact bill holds more value than a wrinkled, dirty one, your words are only as powerful as the state from which they are spoken. If your emotions are released in moments of mental chaos or emotional confusion, no matter how beautiful the words, the signal is distorted. You're sending out crumpled spiritual currency. But when your emotions arise from stillness and clear presence, those same words become powerful wire transfers into the universe's bank, and the returns are multiplied. Reflect on your day. How many times did you act in haste, speak while tired, think from a place of frustration? Every one of those moments emitted low-denomination emotions. You were making transactions all day, but only in small change. No major transaction can occur without awareness of the value of the emotional energy you're offering. Emotion is the language the subconscious understands. And only high-value emotions reach deep enough into the subconscious to stay long enough to transform into reality. To raise the spiritual denomination of your energy, you don't need to force yourself to be positive. You need to be real. A genuine emotion, even sadness when fully accepted, carries more healing power than a fake smile. The mind cannot deceive the subconscious. The universe is not attracted to appearances. It listens only to the truth within you. The more honest, present, and grateful you are, the more high-value spiritual currency you emit. And when you send out high-value currency, you begin receiving that same value through opportunities, kind people, synchronicities, and peace. Not every emotion needs to be amplified, but every emotion must be accurately valued. Like a wise merchant, you must know what kind of currency you're transacting with. Each morning, instead of starting the day on autopilot, pause for a few moments to tune your emotional frequency. Sit still, breathe deeply, and call forth the feeling you truly want to cultivate that day. That moment of quiet will transform into a high-denomination spiritual deposit, one that no one can take away. And over time, you'll begin to notice the things you once prayed for showing up. No more urgency, no more control, just a gentle trust, because you know you're now transacting correctly, with the right system, in the right currency. Abundance doesn't come from painful striving. It comes from the ability to discern your emotions and transmit them with subtlety and precision. When you learn to measure the emotional weight of your energy, you become a master financial steward in your own inner bank. And that is where all true wealth begins. 2 golden windows each day, morning and night, are the portals of transformation. There are 2 sacred windows in every day, thin as mist, yet powerful beyond measure when the material world and your inner realm are closest. Morning, just as you wake, and night, just before you sleep. These are the most potent moments to reprogram your inner life and issue your soul's clearest instruction. In the early moments after waking, your conscious mind hasn't yet been hijacked by noise. Your subconscious hasn't yet been layered with habitual reactions. In that openness, what you think, Feel, say, and visualize becomes the energetic command that shapes the flow of your entire day. If you begin in panic, mindlessly scroll through your phone, consume negative news, and leap out of bed like a machine being dragged into motion, you've already sent out a signal of poverty and confusion. But if you begin in stillness, gratitude, a powerful affirmation, or a vivid image of what you desire to live today, you've deposited a high-value spiritual check into your inner account. The frequency you emit at dawn becomes the compass for the entire day. Night holds equal power. Right before sleep, your subconscious enters its deepest receptive state. The final emotions you carry into sleep are the ones your subconscious will chew on, store, and plant like seeds in the rich soil of the unseen. If you end the day with resentment, complaints, worry, or regret, you're sowing toxic seeds into your psyche. But if you end with forgiveness, gratitude, peace, and a clear vision of what you wish to nurture, your sleep becomes a sacred act of healing and restoration. This is not performative positivity. This is the subtle yet exact science of how consciousness works. The way you enter and exit a day is how you open and close the gates through which your deepest transformations flow. You can't control everything that happens during the day, but you can take full ownership of these two sacred thresholds. Morning is the time to plant. Night is the time to water. If you do this consistently with gentle discipline, you'll start to see changes, not from the outside in, but from the inside out. You stop struggling to fix the world. You start upgrading your own operating system. And once the inner code is rewritten, the outer world adjusts accordingly. Pause for a moment right now. Breathe. How will you rise tomorrow? How will you drift into sleep tonight? What will you choose to plant in the invisible window opening just for you? No elaborate rituals needed. Just presence. One sincere thank you. One clear image. One soft emotion. One solid affirmation of the person you're becoming. This is the power of voice within. Not just a voice you hear, but a sanctuary you return to. If you truly want to shift your finances, your peace of mind, your relationships, or your health, begin with these two small moments. These quiet windows are anything but ordinary. They contain the full force of your transformation. Thank you for staying with this journey until the end. If you're still here, it means something deep inside you has already whispered yes to a new way of living. And remember, you don't need a special day to begin. Every morning you rise, every night you rest is your invitation to realign the current of your life. Don't waste these two sacred gifts. Practice. Choose, repeat, believe. And if this message has touched you, I hope you keep walking. New doors are opening. I'll see you in the next video, where we continue doing this sacred work together, not just to live a full life, but to live a life that truly means something.